Alabama's running back room is absolutely loaded. And we all know that Jam Miller is RB1. But who's going to be RB2? How are the carries going to be split up between Daniel Hill, Dre Washington, and Richard Young? Let's talk about it on Tide Talk Live. What is up, everybody? Welcome back into another episode of Tide Talk Live, powered by the Believe Network. Stacey Blackwood here, as we're going to dive into some running back talk. This viral picture of Jam Miller broke out this week of his biceps and how good he looks physically, and it has a lot of fans excited about the running back room, and I'm excited about it too. The running back room is super important. The running game is super important for the success of this team here in 2025. And I want to kind of dive into how the running back room is going to look, how the carries might be distributed, who's going to be RB2. So we're going to just dive into a full on breakdown of the Alabama running back room. And I'm really excited to do that. But please, before we do all that, do us a favor, like, share, and subscribe here on YouTube. We also are free and available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So make sure you look for us and find us there as well. Leave us those 5-star written reviews and just help us continue to grow our brand. Also, we have rolled out a brand new Discord server. We're going to link that in the description below as well. So make sure you join that. It's free, just a good place for Alabama football fans to talk the Crimson Tide. So we hope that you will join us there as well. So this Alabama running back room, we all know, once again, it's led by Jam Miller. We believe that he's going to be RB1, probably going to receive most of the carries there at that group. But there's so many talented players behind him as well. So how is RB2 going to work? Is it going to be a running back committee after Jam Miller? So all that is really interesting to kind of think about and look at, because last year was such an outlier to me in how the running game is going to look. Because if you look at how things played out with Jalen Milroe as the quarterback, a guy who's obviously one of the most athletically gifted players in the country last year, so he saw the most percentage of the carries. And I want to credit Clint Lamb from A to Z Sports and Cover Crimson for kind of breaking this down from a percentage standpoint. uh, According to Clint, Jalen Milroe received about 35% of the carries for Alabama in 2024, and Jam Miller was next in line with about 30% of the carries. So obviously, Jalen Milroe is no longer there, so he's not going to be receiving that many. The quarterback position is not going to be carrying the football that much here in 2025. Now, look, Ty Simpson's really athletic. I do see some certain situations where the coaching staff is going to call some design quarterback runs because Simpson is athletic enough to make plays in the running games, but he is not going to get anywhere close to 35% of the carries here in 2025. So there is going to be a large portion of carries available for the Alabama running backs in 2025. So we foresee Jam Miller being that main ball carrier for Alabama this season. But how does it play out after Jam? Obviously, Justice Haynes is gone. He entered the transfer portal. He's up at Michigan now. Richard Young is back, who only saw about 5% of the carries last year. You have redshirt freshman Daniel Hill, who has really generated a lot of buzz this offseason. Started back in the spring. It's continued this fall. A guy who's big and physical, 6'1", 240 plus, a really good power back, a guy who's also has the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. So can he beat out Richard Young for RB2? Because the truth is, it's been a really quiet offseason for Richard Young. Now, a lot of that could be because he's just kind of kept his head down, been consistent, nothing too flashy because he is more of a power back. He's not a home run hitter by any stretch. He's just a guy who, sticks his head down and picks up a few yards. So how does that look? Is it going to be Daniel Hill? Is it going to be Richard Young? And then you bring in transfer Dre Washington, another senior veteran player who to me is a lot more like Jam Miller, where he can kind of do all three. He can run between the tackles. I wouldn't say he's a home run hitter, and neither is Jam Miller, but he is capable of breaking off a long run or two. given the opportunity. But he's also a really good pass catcher out of the backfield as well. So he's kind of a triple threat of being able to do a solid job in the pass protection, doing a solid job in the run game, and then also doing a good job of catching the ball in the backfield. So, you have Jam Miller, Richard Young, Daniel Hill, and Dre Washington, I think, is the top four backs. Of course, AK Deer, the highly touted freshman, is there. You redshirted Kevin Riley last year, who was a highly recruited kid, but he's small and undersized. He's still under 200 pounds, but is the biggest home run threat, in my opinion, on this roster. Him and AK Deer are. So, but I'm not sure where those two guys fit in because there is only one ball to hand off. So if you start getting more than, three guys in the mix at running back, you're taking the ball away from other playmakers. The more you give it to, let's say, Dre Washington or AK Deer potentially, the more you're taking it away from Jam Miller, the more you're taking it out of the hands of Ty Simpson and those talented receivers. So how they distribute those carries is going to be super interesting. And as I mentioned, Jam Miller received about 30% of the carries last year. I'm going to expect that number to be about 40% this year, maybe even higher than that. And so that part, I think it's clear that Jam Miller is RB1. So after that is where the question really goes back to. And Clint Lamb also pointed out in 2023, under Coach DeBoer in Washington, when Ryan Grove was also the offensive coordinator, it was more of a one running back approach with Dylan Johnson, who received almost 60% of the carries. He was at 56.7% of the carries under Washington, in Washington under Coach DeBoer. Now, I don't see Jam having that much of a production standpoint for Alabama and a carry percentage standpoint because there are a lot of talented players in this backfield for Alabama. And if you go back through the history of Coach DeBoer and Coach Scrub and kind of how they mix things up with a running game, they've done it both ways, as Clint points out in his article. And I'm gonna link his I'm gonna put a link of his article in the description below so you can kind of read what Clint has to say there. He does a great job of breaking things down from a percentage standpoint, and he points out that Coach DeBoer and Coach Grubb kind of have done both throughout their entire career. They've leaned on one guy from on certain years, and they've also taken a running back by committee approach in other years. So this coaching staff kind of finds a way to do what's best given what talent is on their roster for any given year. So I feel like, as I mentioned, Jam Miller's RB1, but there are plenty of talented players behind him that I don't foresee this being a scenario where, Jam Miller receives 60% of the carries and the other 40% is distributed between Ty Simpson, Rich Young, Dre Washington, and Daniel Hill. I don't see that because those guys are too talented to not give them more opportunities throughout the season. So I see more of a, maybe a 40 to 50% percent of the carries for Jam Miller, and the rest of those carries kind of distributed between those other three players as well. But as far as who running back two is, this is a big debate because I think after the season ended last year, after Justice Haynes entered the portal and went to Michigan, it was almost a thought of, well, Richard Young's going to be RB2 because he kind of finished the year as RB2. So we kind of thought it'd be Jam Miller, Rich Young. And then after that, we thought, is it going to be Daniel Hill? Well, then they bring in Dre Washington. What's it look like for Kevin Riley? They recruit AK Deer. So it was really more of a question who's going to be RB3. But with the emergence of Daniel Hill, not only in the spring, but as that's continued throughout the summer and into fall camp, the real question is, can Richard Young hold on to RB2, or is Daniel Hill going to pass him and take over that spot? And the truth is, I just feel like it's going to be Daniel Hill. He's too much of a difference maker. And what I mean by that is you cannot overstate or over exaggerate how much of a power back he is. So, how he could be a difference maker in short yardage situations. And then also his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield is really, really underappreciated. A lot of people don't realize this, but obviously he's a Mississippi product from the state of Mississippi. He would go to 7-on-7 camps with his high school team and play wide receiver. That's where he learned the nuances of catching the ball and running routes, and he kind of refined his role in that regard. So I think his ability to not only be a power back and be a difference maker in short yardage situations, but also his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield and make plays that way is going to be a huge part of this offense. So I think Daniel Hill is going to overtake Richard Young as RB2, but I do think that the next battle is between Dre Washington and Richard Young. And that's what makes this running back room so interesting because I could be wrong and Dre Washington ends up being RB2, or I could be wrong and Richard Young ends up being RB2. So I really believe that there's a scenario where obviously Jam Miller's RB1 and the next three guys could either be 2, 3, or 4. So, I mean, there's a scenario where Dre Washington's RB2 or he's RB4. There's a scenario where Richard Young is RB2 or RB4. There's a scenario where Daniel Hill is RB2 or RB4. So, I, they're almost interchangeable, but I just feel like the ability and the what Daniel Hill brings to the table is going to push him over the edge and give him the edge in being RB2. But this is certainly a position group that has a lot of question marks behind Jam Miller. I think we're confident that Jam Miller is going to be at his best this year. He's been a backup his entire career up until last year where he started receiving, first team reps at a higher rate than his freshman and sophomore seasons. But he's kind of waited his turn in a way, and I think we're finally seeing the best of Jam Miller, and the coaching staff has really raved about how his leadership has grown, how consistent he's become as a player, not only as a runner and a pass catcher. We saw that last year. We saw his ability to run with power, to catch the ball out of the backfield. That play, the touchdown pass he caught against Georgia, on the motion wheel route that he had there, just shows the plays that he can make. He caught a wheel route touchdown against Georgia in the SEC championship game 2 years ago. So we've seen Jam Miller make plays in the passing game. We know he can run the football, and we've also seen his ability and the continued growth that he's made as a pass protector. And look, that cannot be overemphasized of how important that is in this offense. I think we're going to see Jam Miller a lot this fall. I think we're going to see a really good Jam Miller. Does he eclipse 1,000 yards? I don't know because of all the talent that is behind him, because you want to get those guys the ball as well. Not sure he gets to 1,000, but he's going to be hovering around there. I think he had around 650, 680 yards last year. I'm going to set the over under for about 850 this year for Jam Miller, but I think he's going to have a really good season and kind of rise on the draft boards. And I think he's going to have a really good season for Alabama and lead this running back room in this running game, because the running game is going to be important. We know how important it is to have a strong running game. Alabama fans are obsessed with the running game. They had the run the ball theme when Brian Dable was the offensive coordinator, and it just hasn't been as good as it needed to be over the past few seasons. And a lot of that is attributed. Look, when Alabama moved to Tua Tagovailoa, and then you had Bryce Young and Mac Jones and all those guys, those were really talented passers. So they kind of went away from the running game just a little bit. Now it's still important, but you saw the effects of that. The last 1,000-yard rusher Alabama had was in 2021 with Brian Robinson. So it's been 3 full seasons since Alabama has had a 1,000-yard rusher. Not sure Alabama gets there this year, but I think they get closer, and I think you see a more effective running game because of guys like Jam Miller and Daniel Hill and Richard Young and Dre Washington, and how they're consistent they're going to be. And I think you're going to see a more uh, assertive and aggressive and physical offensive line than what we've seen the last couple of years as well, because that's obviously going to play an important role on how successful this running game is as well. But I'm excited about this running back room. I think you have to feel good about Jam Miller. I think you have to feel good about the guys behind him. The offensive line is improving, and so you feel good about that as well. But how they split the carries is going to be really interesting. I feel like Jam Miller is going to be 40 to 50%. I feel like Daniel Hill is going to be that next guy. And then I actually think it's going to be Dre Washington. And it just, I hate to be like this because I was a big believer in Richard Young, and this is not a shot at him. Sometimes you just get passed up. I feel like Richard Young is going to slip to that RB4 role before the end of the season. Now, he may start the year at RB2, and if he's given an opportunity against FSU, he's going to have to make the most of it because those guys, Daniel Hill and Dre Washington, are kind of breathing down his neck and making a lot of noise this fall. So this RB room is loaded. It's got a lot of talent, and I'm excited to see how they kind of distribute those carries between those guys. And I think another big question that Tide fans want to know is, what about AK Deer? Does he have any type of role this fall? And the best way I can answer that is we're just going to have to wait and see because there's so many upperclassmen ahead of him. And also, I just, you put AK Deer in, that means Jan Miller's not in. That means Daniel Hill's not in. That means Trey Washington's not in. And that means Richard Young is not in. So there's a lot of nuances that AK Deer has to learn before I think he's ready for a big workload in SEC football because there's more than just running the ball. We know that he's a talented runner, but you have to be able to pass protect and you have to be able to make plays in the passing game as well. Or if you're a one-dimensional player, you're not going to be a very successful player in the SEC, in big-time college football. It's just the way it is. So I have faith that AK Deer is going to be a great player down the road. I'm just not sure how much of a role he'll have here in 2025. But guys, that's going to wrap it up for this running back room talk. I'm excited about this room, and once again, I'm going to link a link to Clint's article on the running back room here in the description below. Really excited about what the future holds for this position group, and I really believe this could be one of the surprise position groups for Alabama this football season. Everybody's talking about the receiver room on offense, rightfully so. Everybody's talking about how excited they are that Ty Simpson has been named the starter in the season that he could potentially have. But I truly believe that if Alabama wants to win a championship this season, Jam Miller and those running backs have to have a big year. It starts with those guys. It starts with the guys up front, and I think they're going to do it. I think they're going to see a much improved running game from Alabama in 2025. But that's going to wrap it up, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please do like, share, and subscribe here on YouTube. We're less than 50 subs away from 3,000, so help us get there before kickoff against Florida State on August 30th. There's no reason we can't get there. It's free, doesn't cost you a thing. Hit that sub button and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our content we upload here on YouTube. Also free and available thanks to the Believe Network on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave those 5-star written reviews there as well. Jump in the comments below. Let me know how you think the running back room is going to look this fall. Jam Miller won, but who is RB2 and how are those carries going to be distributed amongst all those talented guys? But that's going to wrap it up, guys. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you real soon. Roll Tide.